Wednesday, October the 20th, 2021, and this is the City of Anderson Board of Architectural Review. First item on the agenda, anything, Maurice?
We have one item this evening to discuss. We'll go over that after all the other items.
Very good. Then we'll move right into the public hearing. First being BAR 2137. Maurice.
Very good. Thank you. This request is in regards to 205 South Main Street, which is in the Downtown Historic District. As you can see on your screen, this is a building located at 205 South Main. The applicant is seeking approval to add new signage to the building, and you can see the sign graphic will be located on the building. But to be specific, this is the sign. You can see a little closer up, and let me know if I don't get this centered properly because we're having some different.
It looks good.
Okay. This sign is double-sided aluminum composite material sign, about 6 square feet in size. It's black and white in color, and as you can see, it'll be hung from a metal arm bracket. And the sign obviously meets the square footage requirements per the city's zoning ordinance. And also in our sign regulations, it states that the bottom of the sign structure must be at least 8.5 feet of the sidewalk grade for pedestrian clearance. So that's one item that we will require as far as this is concerned if this is approved. And when you are reviewing sign requests, the board should focus on the standards set forth in Chapter 8 of the design guidelines. And those guideline policies include designing a sign to be in balance with the overall character of the property. Appropriate signs in the downtown district include freestanding signs, flush-mounted, window signs, projecting signs, hanging signs, awning signs, and directional signs. And a sign should be constructed to be in character with the building from a historical perspective. So those are the items from the downtown design guidelines to consider as you're looking at new signage. And again, this is the request 205 South Main Street. And the applicant is here if you have any specific questions regarding this request.
Very good, thank you. We have an aluminum composite sign, vinyl graphics on a decorative metal arm. It's what we have seen and approved and actually encouraged. And in this particular case, the design seems to match very well with this particular building. Thoughts, comments, concerns, questions?
I just assume that in this graphic that we're looking at, because the arm will be up a little higher than it looks.
Yes, as Maurice indicated, there
because it will be a sign.
Yes.
Okay.
So from an illustrative standpoint, what you see on the graphic.
And that will be part of the sign permit process.
Correct.
Anything further? Is there a motion? A motion from Amanda, second from Bill. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Very good. Thank you so much. Move on now to BAR 2138.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is another request for a sign. This is located at 513 North McDuffie Street. It's also in the Downtown Historic District. Gives you a perspective of how it looks from the street view. This sign bracket is already in existence, so they're proposing to add signage to attach to that existing bracket. What they're proposing, there's a typo in the document, is an 8 square foot sign hung on the existing metal pole, and the sign will be constructed of fake enamel and metal, the color scheme that you can see here, kind of a greenish in color. And this is the way it will look once it is hung on the existing sign bracket and pole. Again, similar with the other requests, when you're reviewing sign requirements in the downtown district, there are standards set forth in Chapter 8 of the guidelines. Freestanding or pole-mounted signs may be considered, which this is. Design a sign to be in balance with the overall character of the property. And also, appropriate signs include freestanding, flush-mounted, window, projecting, hanging, awning, and directional signs. And a sign should be constructed to be in character with those seen historically. Again, this is a request for 513 North McDuffie Street, a sign to be located on an existing pole where a sign was previously hung in the past.
Super. We appreciate you bringing this before us, but following up from our discussion from last month, as this is an existing pole, and this sign is the same dimensions, just simply new graphics for a new occupant at the location. Going forward, would we be okay with going the alternate procedure as we approved last month? And Maurice, would that be in keeping as far as you're concerned?
Yes, sir, I believe so. Yeah, I was uncertain of the previous sign that was located there, couldn't
Okay.
locate that, so we brought it, and the applicant was fine with that, and was fine with waiting.
Sure.
That's the reason why, but you're absolutely right. I do believe this type of request would be one of those that we could handle administratively with the board chairman's input.
Everyone okay with that?
Yes.
All right, but as this is before us, is there a motion to approve? From Andy, second. From Billy, anything further? All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks so much. Now on to BAR 2140.
Okay, this request is regarding the River of Life Church on South McDuffie Street, 601 South McDuffie. The applicant is seeking approval to construct a covered drop-off area for access into the rear of the River of Life Church. In addition to that, an existing door and windows are proposed to be eliminated, making way for a new storefront entrance to help construct this area. And to be specific, this is the back of the church. The church office is a detached structure located in this area. The applicant is proposing to enclose this area where this door is and create a new storefront entrance here, building out this covered drop-off area. This is a perspective that is looking down into the property from East River Street. I was mentioning a moment ago, the applicant is here so they can provide you a little bit more detail regarding this plan, but this is where the existing door is. They're proposing to enclose that, create a new storefront entrance here with the enclosed drop-off extending out toward the church office. And the opening that's going to be filled with brick veneer to match the existing brick. The removal of 2 basement windows will use existing masonry to match the wall and thickness of the existing wall. And the new entrance will consist of aluminum and glass materials. The covered drop-off will extend out 25 feet in length, again extending toward the church office. The roofing will consist of architectural shingles that will match the existing roof of the main structure. And the new stairs will extend toward the driveway and will be constructed to meet ADA requirements. And when you're looking at construction such as this, the board should focus on the standards set forth in design guidelines that mainly states to minimize the visual impacts of an addition of a commercial or to a commercial building. And there's several items in there. 6.2 is shall be compatible in scale, materials, and character with the main building. An addition shall not damage or obscure architecturally important features. And an addition may be made to the roof, in this particular case, it's next to the roof. But if it does, it needs to be set back from the primary character defining facade to preserve the perception of the historic scale of the building. And its design should be modest in character, so it should not attract attention in the historic facade. And the addition should be distinguishable as new in a subtle way. Again, those are the guidelines that the board should consider when making a determination for this particular request. And again, this is for the addition at 601 South McDuffie, the River of Life Church, and Glenn Constructors are here to answer any specific questions that you may have.
Super. Just a couple things. The material on the railing. What material?
Probably just go with painted steel.
Okay. And the material in the gable, the front of the extension.
The main part of it will be steel, but then trusses going across will be wood.
But it looks like there's
Siding.
some sort of siding.
No, so the veneer of it will probably just do a painted trim wood on the outside, imagine they have on the buildings.
What is the gable material?
Right.
I think that's what it is.
That would be siding going down it.
And what type of siding?
Siding or board.
Right, okay. And Maurice, if you'll give us the original photo and clarification. So it's the door and the next two windows and the two basement windows, is that correct? That's where this is gonna be?
Correct.
Doors
Okay.
get closed up.
All right, right, but in that area.
Yeah.
Okay,
This
so,
will be removed right here, the existing
all right,
door.
so that's the clarification I was seeking. Comments, questions? Andy?
The aluminum material of the new door storefront, will that be white, aluminum?
It's white, yes, sir.
White.
It's gonna match, what's existing for this.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Looks like they'll have to move these looks like air conditioners.
The AC condensers there?
Units will have to move
Stop right
one of
here.
the units, but they'll still be in that same area right there.
Yeah. Other thoughts?
Looks good.
Thanks for being here. I mean, those are kind of details we needed, just clarification. If there's nothing further, is there a motion? A motion from Amanda to approve and second from Andy. Anything further? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here.
They indicated the color, but I hadn't
Oh.
caught it.
And now on to BAR 2142.
Yes, sir. This property's 128 West Anderson Avenue. This is the front of the house facing Anderson Avenue. It's a corner lot, and this is the side facing the side street. Located here.
Is that
The-
Side Street, Holly?
South Holly.
Thank you, yes. The applicant is seeking approval to add new windows at 128 Anderson Avenue. This house is actually a triplex, and it was converted many years ago for that purpose, so it's actually considered a legal non-conforming use. Although it's zoned single-family residential in that area, it's been there for many years. Essentially, it's grandfathered in from a zoning perspective. The property owner is getting ready to undergo a substantial renovation, including a new roof, new exterior paint, improved landscaping, updates to the HVAC, new windows, and many other interior renovations. And since the roof and paint are remaining the same color, those to be administrative approvals by the staff.
Right.
But the main item we're bringing to you today, and again, there's a lot of interior renovations taking place, which obviously that does not come before the board too, but the main item is to replace the windows, and that does require approval by the BAR. As you can see, there's many windows, various sizes of windows that are on the house, and in your packet, you can see specifically sizes that are being requested. I believe there's about 23 windows.
Very many.
So they are, existing windows are double hung windows, and the new ones are to be vinyl replacement windows of a similar pattern. When you review window requests, the board should focus on the standards set forth in Chapter 3 of the design guidelines, and those sections that apply relate to preserving the size and shape of the historically significant windows and doors. Always to repair a deteriorated window or door instead of replacing it, and to replace a window or door that is damaged beyond repair with one similar to that is seen historically. And the board must decide if those changes meet the criteria set forth in the guidelines. The applicant is here to answer any specific questions that you may have regarding these windows.
Okay. If I may just pick apart the language. From what it appears, all the windows are double hung, or 1/1, is that correct?
Yes.
So when you're saying similar pattern, we are looking at replacing with 1/1 in every instance?
In every instance, correct? 1/1 in every instance, correct?
Yes. Okay. It was similar, just like, wait a minute, let's narrow that down. All right. 1/1 current to be replaced with 1/1 vinyl. Comments, questions, concerns?
We've approved vinyl replacements before, and it'll look the same from the street.
Anything further? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to approve? Motion from Bill, second from Amanda. Anything further? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you much.
We could get him to redo.
Next time.
Now on to VAR 2143.
Okay. This request is in relation to 111 Sharp Street. This is 111 Sharp Street. This is 109, I believe it is. So this is 111. This is the building we're talking about specifically. The applicant is seeking approval to cover a parapet wall with TPO roofing as part of a roofing project that started before permits were acquired and obviously before BAR had a chance to review this particular request. Most of the roof is flat, so you can't really see that. It's not visible from the street, and flat roofs are common with most of the commercial buildings downtown area, so a lot of times TPO roofing, takes place on these historic structures. In this particular case, there is a parapet wall, and it's very clear, you can see it from the street. This is the vantage point from McDuffie Street looking down Sharp Street, and this is the parapet wall you can see clearly with the TPO roofing that covers it. As you know, the character of the roof is one of the main highlights of a historic structure. Roof pitch, materials, size, orientation are all distinct features that contribute to this. And obviously, in this particular case, the parapet wall is a very striking feature of this building. And you can see a couple of other photos. Our building inspector was on the roof that day. You can see how the parapet was covered. I was able to find some Google Earth images. These are kind of hard to see, but it may just give you a perspective of what it looked like prior to the work commencing. Can you see that? You can see the parapet wall. That's what it looked like prior to it. It's been covered. That didn't work. How about that? You can see that a little more clearly. When considering these type of requests, the board should focus on the standards set forth in design guidelines, and specifically states the parapet wall should not be altered, especially those on primary elevations or highly visible. It states that when a parapet wall becomes deteriorated, there's sometimes a temptation to lower or remove it. Avoiding doing this because the flashing of the roof is often tied to the parapet, and disturbing it can cause moisture problems. One item that's specifically stated in the document, it says that avoid waterproofing treatments which can interfere with the parapet's natural ability to dry out quickly when it gets wet. So this policy is listed in the design guidelines. That's something to consider as you're making the determination. Again, this started without building permits, without BAR approval. We did request that the applicant attend the meeting tonight to answer any questions that you may have. I heard back close to 5 o'clock today, and they said they could not attend, and the property owner, I believe, was out of town. So that's where we are with things right now.
Thank you. It's, I think, significant that parapets, their design features specifically addressed in our guidelines, further emphasizing the importance and their contributing nature to the architecture of buildings. That this was done without a building permit, without a construction permit, and without coming before us inexcusable, and 2 levels. This is a serious alteration to this building. The other side of the main structure has a beautiful exterior wall that we see from Main Street, adding significantly to it. I fail to see any excuse for why this has happened, and the opportunity as was extended to the applicant to be here tonight or not. I would open for any comments and questions, but I would call for a motion to deny the application. Yes, Jill?
I have a question. How are they going to get that off without damaging the brick wall behind it?
They're going to have to deal with that. And, arguably, the TPOs, it's adhered at on the edges, to some extent floating.
Yeah,
I've not seen
it's
it done.
a heat-applied membrane, so I don't think it's too difficult to remove, and I don't think it would damage the brick when they remove it, assuming they didn't put some type of glue or waterproofing material
behind the TPO, it should come off pretty easily.
Andy?
Agree, our building inspector pretty much echoed what Mr. Zion just said, that it can be removed. Again, I don't know what the integrity of the brick is behind it, but he says it typically it can be, you know, removed from the heat, so.
Andy?
I'm in agreement with what was said, but I had a question, but I've answered it looking at the screen versus the printout. The printout looked like the brick had been painted.
Yes.
And but I can see in the screen view that it was not.
You could almost argue that this is more of the side facade as opposed to, I mean, technically
Exactly.
it's a parapet, but it's really the side facade of the building.
I mean,
Especially when you
this-
yeah.
This building.
hmm I mean, it's typical to see them wrap that membrane up pretty high like that, but it's normally on a front-facing facade.
Right.
And they wrap it back. It's usually not visible.
and this is so prominent, not just a little above to where you can't.
Right.
And the architectural nature of this building is significant.
hmm
It is significant, and that really changed the look of that building, and you see it from down the street, and it jumps out at you.
And to do it without, not only not coming before us, without permit for the work of the city. Anything further? Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we reject it.
Motion from Bill to deny the application, second
I'll second.
from Andy,
Jill too.
and Jill joining in that second.
Just a clarification, remove it from the parapet wall. Once they obtain permits, the TPO can remain on the flat part of the roof, just not the parapet wall, correct?
That would be correct. Now, because of the change of the roofing material, that really should come back before us.
I mean, it will have to be flashed with something.
Correct.
You know.
So that's what we will go back to.
Up to a certain
And I
height.
believe because of the situation they have created, we need to see what's going on
Right,
beforehand.
so it should come back.
That is correct.
Portion of this way it looks now denied, but bring it back for the remedy.
Yes. You know,
Very good, thank you.
for the conversation purposes, we have approved TPOs in the past. It's not the objectionable to the material itself, but it's the way they've applied it, seriously altering and damaging the architectural integrity of this building.
Yes, sir, thank
So
you.
we have a motion, second, all in favor? Opposed? Very good. Thank you. Next, BAR 2144.
Yes, thank you. This is a request for a new sign at 106 East Benson Street, which is in the downtown historic district. The applicant is seeking to add new signage to the building at 106 East Benson, as you can see in this photo. And as you can see, this is where the sign is proposed to be located. This is a closer view of it right here. The request is for an aluminum composite panel sign that's 38.5 square feet in size, in a Benjamin Moore paper white color. On that will be black lettering, 10 inches in size and a half-inch thick to be applied to that aluminum panel. So again, as you heard in the previous two sign requests, the board should focus on the standards set forth in Chapter A of the design guidelines, design a sign to be in balance with the overall character of the property. Appropriate signs include freestanding, flush-mounted, window, projecting, hanging, awning, and directional signs. And the sign should be in character with those seen historically. And the proposed sign size does meet our guidelines per the zoning ordinance. The applicant is also here to answer any questions if you have those.
Thank you. The applicant is listed as Sonorama, but is the owner here? No, that's, my only comment is, what a wonderful job they've done on this building. I mean, it's truly commendable, the extra effort, detail, in every respect. What a wonderful addition to downtown, and they need to be commended for it. As to the sign, material is in conformity with all that we've approved in the past. Any comments? Anything anybody else wants to say?
I would just need to recuse myself from the vote because I worked on this project, but I mean, this sign is in keeping, and I think it was approved by the historic the State Historic Society. So it is in keeping with the history of the building, so.
Just fine job. I mean, fine addition to downtown. All right, with that, motion to approve. From Jill, second. Amanda, anything further? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Very good. And to wrap up the public hearing, we now move to VAR 2145.
Yes, this is 110 Sharp Street, more commonly known as the old Thunderbird Motel. It's, the downtown historic district. The applicant is seeking approval to make extensive modifications to the building as part of the building's conversion to apartments. And there are several exterior changes that are subject to review by the BAR, and that includes refurbishing the exterior facades with paint, new windows, doors, new shading and screening devices, adding fencing along the Sharp Street, East North Street property lines, creating recreational green space in the existing grass areas, along with adding landscape gardens in the existing parking lot to soften the image, and refurbish the signage. Billy Zion is the applicant, and he is here to give you a more in-depth presentation.
And as noted, Billy being the applicant, moving to the presentation podium, he is recusing himself from voting. However, we appreciate the information that you're about to share. Billy.
Yes, so as Maurice said, this is the beautiful Thunderbird Motel. Let's see if I can pull this up here. So the project location is here in yellow. You've got 4th Street. Can you see my cursor? Yeah. 4th Street is down here. Biggs is right here. This is the Uptown Lounge here on the right. And Sharp Street, the building we just looked at with the parapet, is right here. So the primary concern, I guess, or the primary reason to initially come before the board is to get approval for our fencing and approval for the exterior facade modifications that we're making. The fencing primarily because if you look here, and the concept is going to be converting this motel to 1 and 2 bedroom apartments and studio apartments. So the idea is they want to make the site more secure. So we would like to add fencing along Orr Street right here between Uptown Lounge and the corner of our building. And also from on the Sharp Street side, there is an existing fence kind of running along this tree line here. And it's an existing wood stockade fence kind of grown over. We'll connect that wood stockade fence right about in here and run it all the way over to our driveway. So this would make it a little more secure within the site. As you know, it's kind of a dark, dangerous place right now. But the idea is to brighten it up, make it more secure, and again, convert it to apartments. So this is another site plan. This kind of shows you, number one, we're going to refurbish the building, hopefully painting the masonry a brighter color to lighten it up a little bit. And then, as I mentioned before, number two would be to add fencing on the Sharp Street side here and the Orr Street side here. And we're going to create, there are existing green spaces within the site now. So right here, this large green space exists, and this green space back here exists. And when I submitted this, we were thinking about inserting some more green islands on the site, which we still might do, but maybe not as it's shown in this image. So there will be some green space in there. And so our fencing we're proposing is a horizontal slat fence, kind of a 2-layered system where you've got some front slats with a space in between, and on the back side, the back slats infill the space of the front slats. So it would be a painted wood fence, and we're proposing this dark cyberspace color here, so it'd be a dark painted wood fence.
And paint as opposed to stain?
If we can get a stain that color, I would prefer a stain because of the lower maintenance of a stain. So
Yeah,
we'll try to
anticipating that question.
Yeah.
We've had before.
And I will mention that Greg Adams is here. He represents Enclave Holdings, who bought the property a few months ago, and he will be helping me with renovation, so.
Glad to have you here and appreciate the interest in downtown.
Here are some existing photos of the Motor Lodge as it exists today. This is the Orr Street side. This is the Junkyard Gym right beside it here. This is the Sharp Street facade. You can see the Calhoun Lofts behind it. This is again the Sharp Street facade here. And these are photographs of the inner court facades. And we are planning on keeping this primary signage here, upgrading it, painting it, making it look a little bit better, but keeping that, kind of keeping that, a little bit of the retro feel of the old Thunderbird motif, but not too much. Okay, so our concepts, this is kind of a concept board here. Again, we'll like to keep this primary signage here. This isn't Thunderbird. This is a similar project where it shows the masonry was painted a lighter color, and they introduced some shading devices, which we'll talk about here in a second. But so we would like to paint the masonry, and we would like to introduce some horizontal shading devices for privacy and to just liven up the facade a little bit. And we would like to replace the existing windows with a dark storefront window, or if possible, we can refurbish the existing windows and maybe paint the frames a dark color, but the windows will be a dark frame.
Will they have to open?
Yes, so we would need to insert an operable window if there's not one already in each of the rooms. So wherever there's a bedroom, yes, in a unit, you need to have an operable window. But some of that can be taken care of with the door. Okay, so here is kind of our general color palette. I know it's very exciting, a lot of shades of gray there, but really what we want to do is use the cyberspace dark color again for the fencing, some of the trim around the fascia of the roof. The railing, of course, would be that darker color. And then the primary body of the painted masonry would be a light gray. This is showing up a little dark. I think we want to go a shade darker than this gray. And then we would also have a white color for the exterior ceilings, which again, I think would look differently than this white. It looks good on that screen, but not on my computer screen. So that's the general color palette, shades of gray with the white. And for the privacy bars, I was looking at grays for that as well, but then thinking that might be too much gray, and we need a little bit of pop of color. So we're thinking of using like a wood-colored horizontal privacy screen, which you'll see here in a minute. All right, so I also submitted these. We put together a few different color schemes we were thinking about. Scheme A shows the dark window frame, as I mentioned earlier. Again, the dark color on the fascia of the roof, painted white masonry. And this is existing railing here. This railing exists. We'll just paint that dark color as well. And here's where those vertical or horizontal privacy screens show up. And we're thinking that if these are located in front of the doors of the units, it will give the owners or the tenants some privacy from the parking lot as they open their door and go into their apartment. Or if they want to leave their door open to let some natural air in, they'll have privacy with those screens. This was another scheme. This one was a little more white, and it included white storefront window frames just to see what that would look like. And then this one, we tried to see what some of the Thunderbird colors would look like on the doors. We really didn't like that one. So we landed here on this one with the dark window frames and the light painted masonry. And I'm going to pull up this here. So we've got a rendering of the building to kind of help show you what's going on here. So this is can everybody see that? Yeah. This is the Sharp Street side. So we would keep this covered drive. Again, if you remember, this is this is unpainted brick now, so this would be painted brick and masonry on the facade. All these steel elements will be repainted. The ceiling of the roof will be repainted white, and you begin to see how these privacy screens show up. And this is the fence along Sharp Street. Again, it would run, there's an existing wood stockade that's overgrown that kind of comes to this point. So our fence would pick up there and give privacy for the property all the way down. And what's behind that is the green space. This is the facade that faces the Calhoun Lofts and these parking lots back there in the back. So that's not really visible or as visible because of the buildings behind it. And as you work your way into the inner court here, we're showing some possible covered bike storage here. We're showing a rooftop garden access from the 3rd floor. There's a stairwell in this corner here where they could access the rooftop garden. And these are kind of those landscaped islands that we mentioned earlier, figuring out a way to provide some of the tenants with an area they can go out in the parking lot and have some outdoor space, some privacy out there, because we wouldn't need all these parking spaces, so we can utilize some of them for different things like this. So these are outdoor private gardens here, and these are, for lack of a better word, it's not a great word, these are storage sheds for some of the tenants, depending on how the owner decides to distribute those. Some of the tenants would have access to these outdoor storage units where they could store some of their furniture or whatever else they need to get out, because the apartments are pretty small, so they can't put a lot of stuff in there. So maybe some of the smaller apartments would have access to these storage units. And the idea is to dress these up with a similar painted wood cladding, either tongue and groove or shiplap, to go in line with kind of the architecture of the fence, and to put a low slope roof on top of that to kind of go with the theme of the low slope roof of the motel. And not really sure how many of those we would have yet. This is all still kind of schematic, but again, as I mentioned before, our primary purpose initially is to get approval for the fencing, and if we can paint the masonry, if that color scheme looks good to everybody. And just quickly, this is the Orr Street side here. This exists as a chain link fence now, and it's kind of beat up and bent. All right, I think that's all I have. I'm sure you have some questions.
All right, impressive. In the detail, of course, helps us a great deal, but excuse me. Keeping with the initial architecture of the building, I mean, it's just wonderful. But before I open it up, it's just fencing and painting of the brick tonight. Is that all you're seeking?
And the concept of the privacy screens.
Okay.
I can pull it up. Let's see.
Excuse me. The privacy screens on the balconies?
Yeah, these vertical
Yes.
panels.
Right. All right, so
You'll see it. Sorry, John. You'll see in this photograph right here, there is existing structure there, kind of existing privacy screens on the facade now, and those would stay in place. We'd refurbish those, paint those, and then attach these horizontal bands, which would be metal. They're metal tubes, but they look like wood.
okay.
It wouldn't be wood up there rotting or turning gray. It would be a low maintenance color that wouldn't fade, and it would just be attached to the steel structure that's already there.
In that location and in other locations?
Yeah, where there are not these steel structures, we would recreate this ironwork, on these facades to have something to attach to.
Okay, great. All right, so Jill.
Couple of questions. So if you attach this would you attach it to the front, what about the back of the facade? inner court facades,
When you're on the
yeah,
hall.
those porch things. Would they be the same, the grid effect on the back and then the
Yeah,
slats? Right.
there would have to be some metal work behind those, as you can kind of see here.
Hmm.
So that would be attached to the fascia of the roof,
Okay.
anchored down at the ground, and it would be a similar metal type structure to mount those.
So it'd be
horizontal.
like the grid effect, like is on the original, as like a grid?
Yes, yep.
Okay. Another question is, how tall is the fence on the street side?
I think I'm showing it at 8 feet. It's 8 feet above. I think there's actually a brick wall here. Is that right, Greg? I think there's a. Yeah.
Well, that's a little high, I mean, that's higher for neighborhood areas, but here, commercial downtown seems to be appropriate.
So would some of these interior elements be something that the board would need to approve, like the storage units and the bike rack? And,
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
But I mean, initial impression seems to be reasonable, well-designed, and appropriate, in keeping with the overall concept. Other comments? Andy?
No, I was blown away when I first saw it. I thought, what an improvement.
It's way past time.
But it does sort of refer back to the original style, which I think is really nice.
Well thought out. Amanda?
No, oh, I agree.
Yep.
I think it's definitely an asset to the area.
All right, to the particulars here. Fencing has been addressed, painting of the brick, guidelines caution us, discourage from doing it. Come before us in the past, we've always looked at whether the brick, it's contributing, the age of it, the style of it, and the suggested modifications. So we've approved, looking at this, I'm not seeing anything significant architecturally that would interfere with this overall major project in the right direction.
Fits in well being painted.
So, again, as we look at individually, this particular project, this particular location, seems to fit.
Could you do something with that 4th Street facade there? That's just a big white blank wall.
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for some type of mural, possibly, in my opinion. And there's, let me pull this up. I think it would be cool if we relocated this sign. You might not think, but this is visible really only from the Calhoun loft side.
Oh, that'd be good.
Maybe that can move to the Orr Street facade and maybe add apartments underneath it.
And far better than mural that maintenance issues.
Right. And like that, maybe from down low or.
And even if you couldn't do that, possibly just recreating something like that
Right.
screen on the 3rd floor that became a trellis kind of thing as an accent. Not the whole wall, but just.
Right, yeah.
And the honeycomb bricks stay on that side and above.
That's right. So
It just would all be painted the same.
yeah, so this deco block shows up here on Orr Street and also on the Calhoun loft side. So I didn't show it on my model on the loft side, but I did show it here.
Oh, right.
We'll just paint it that dark color to match the fascia trim.
Sure.
It will need to be repaired in some areas, but it'll be repaired and painted to match the trim elements.
I like the gray color.
Yeah.
All right, so shades of gray as far as the paint and the darker trims. for painting the exterior and the fencing before us. Anything further? I mean, with what you presented, it makes it a lot easier, as you know. We appreciate it. Is there a motion to approve? A motion from Andy, second from Bill. Anything further? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes the public hearing portion of tonight's meeting. There is an addenda.
Yes, we have one item to discuss and bring this back up to.
Nice, really.
Back in June, you considered this request. This is 122 West Whitmer Street. You approved several exterior alterations to the structure. This is existing, this is proposed. If you look at that meeting, there was a request for sign approval, and it was for an attached sign to the front of the building. What the applicant proposed was a 50 square foot sign. And at the meeting, you approved the design of the sign, but from a size standpoint, you requested that the sign fit in one of this middle square, which is significantly smaller than 50 square feet, which they were initially requesting. They were not at the meeting at the time, but what you requested was to allow the sign in that center square, which was probably half the size of what they were requesting. You also stated that if they wanted to make any changes to that, to bring it back to the board. Well, fast forward about 3 months, they brought something different, significantly different, much smaller. It's a projecting sign. That's about 7 square feet in size. It's a purple color. It's hanging from a bracket. They proposed for it to hang from the center square.
Ah.
And
Like that.
significant change from what they initially requested, again, much smaller in scale, more keeping with the historic district. So we wanted to bring this to your attention tonight for approval.
Certainly, and I mean, wonderful modification. We appreciate their attention to the detail and our concerns.
Yes, the materials are high density urethane.
Would there be any additional signage on the windows?
Not at the time, we have not approved anything like that, but again, sometimes signage in windows, temporary signage may be not subject to VAR approval, but if it's something permanent, we would bring that back to you. But they have not presented that to us yet.
All right, so hanging sign, nice scale.
Much
good.
more
Yeah.
visually
Yeah,
accessible.
after, indeed. All right, motion to approve. Amanda, second. Bill, anything further? All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. And one other thing I want to point out, following up with what we did last month regarding approval of sign, Blake and Brady, modification with the new tenant there, saying canvas awning, slightly different color, but I would have gone ahead and approved that, consistent with what the instructions were from last month. Just wanted to let you know. And finally, approval for the minutes from September. Charlotte, as always, we appreciate you keeping up with us. An opportunity to review. Motion to approve from Bill, second. Billy, all in favor? Excellent. Anything further tonight? Thank you very much. Motion to adjourn. Thank you, Andy. Second from Billy, all in favor? We are adjourned.